Best part about a Wednesday is we get to talk to our dear friend Mark Latham. He is doing everything he can to get himself and lots of other people from One Nation elected in that upper house, and we cheer him on with every step he takes. Great man, welcome back to the Man Cave.
Always fantastic. I love the Man Cave.
So, surprise, surprise, the National Energy Market Operator tells us what we already know. When you blow up a power system that works and you haven't replaced it with one that can do the job, blackouts are coming. Where's this in the New South Wales election?
Well, it's the most pressing issue because in 2 years' time after the closure of Eraring, we've got the forecast of blackouts in New South Wales, which is a disaster for investment. It's an economic and social disaster. The lights go out. No Paul Murray program, no traffic lights, hospitals on emergency generators, no schools, no shopping centres, no manufacturing, no mining. I mean, the economic disaster of it is enormous. And who would now invest in a state that can't keep the lights on? So I put this to Dominic Perrottet at Budget Estimates late last year, and I said, what are you doing in light of the AEMO advice then, confirmed yesterday, that we can't keep the lights on? He said, I better take some advice. And I followed up and asked him on the notice paper, what's the advice saying? And he referred me to a non-answer from Matt Keane. And Chris Minns is worse. Chris Minns' policy is to set up a second energy corporation in New South Wales, duplicating the bureaucrats. So both of them are clueless, and neither of them has got an answer about this pressing problem of actually keeping the lights on and powering up a modern economy.
But you couldn't think of something more fundamental for somebody to show what their plan is. But because there's only one solution, and it's either wind or solar, it's only that form of renewable, no nuclear, gas, there'll be no offshore, gas mining if we're re-elected. And all of that is just to play to the soft left of the Liberal Party, the lovies at Channel 2, the lovies over at Sydney Morning Herald. But in the rest of the world, especially in regional New South Wales, watching us right now on Sky News Regional, if the power goes away, as you say, everything stops. You couldn't, and there's a warning bell going off a couple of weeks before an election. Yet the lead story today, of course, on the TV news, 1 litre goes here, 1 litre goes there, photo ops, cuddles, all the rest of it, and no reference to this alarm that's going off now.
Well, unfortunately, the media outlets you've mentioned are part of the cult of renewables, where everyone says, oh, look, if you just say renewables, magic dust is flying around to keep the lights on. Well, it doesn't work that way. And AEMO said yesterday, in greater detail than ever, that the problem in the forecast of blackouts is we haven't got the backup power. There's solar farms out there, there's wind farms out there, but when we have a wind drought and the sun's not shining, so at night time, where's the backup power? Where's the gas peaking plants? Where's the pumped hydro to actually keep the lights on, given that you're driving coal-fired power stations like Eraring and Liddell out of the market? And Albanese obviously has no comprehension of this because, the problem is the former government in Canberra didn't invest enough in renewables. No, that's not what AEMO is saying. They're saying you've got a fundamental problem that Malcolm Turnbull's Snowy 2.0 is running over 12 months late, and the Hume link to actually get it into the grid is problematic, and the Curry gas peaking plant, much needed, is also running over 12 months late, mainly because Chris Bowen is fluffing around with hydrogen, which is not feasible. So what they said is, look, you haven't got the backup power for when the sun's not shining, the wind's not blowing. And that is something that we said in the upper house in New South Wales 2.5 years ago, when we forced 85 divisions on the insanity of Matt Keane's rushed 100% renewable plan, and said inevitably this will drive coal-fired power stations out of the energy grid, and that's happening, and inevitably we won't have the backup power because New South Wales is a fairly flat state. There's no viable pumped hydro to come to the rescue, and they don't like gas. So inevitably you won't have the backup power to keep the lights on, and unfortunately that's also happening. So, Paul, this is dire work and the immediate number one pressing issue by a country mile in the New South Wales election campaign.
And we see that in regional New South Wales, the very party that let Matt Keane get away with all of this stuff when it comes to energy, now the list as long as your arm, just like you told us last week about the woke list of garbage that was in and around the public service. We've now got a list of just election bribes. They're just straight out election bribes that regional MPs are being sent back to feed the chooks, dare I say.
Well, the National Party conceded to Matt Keane on net zero, even though John Barilaro, their leader, said it would destroy mining and agriculture in the state, but they still put up the white flag. And we had an IPA report earlier this week saying net zero in New South Wales will cost 138,000 jobs, mostly in regional industries. So it's an economic wrecking ball in country New South Wales. So the National Party's only strategy is to throw pork barrelling at these electorates, and now they're starting to run out of feasible ideas of how you throw money at country people. They've got a plan that you can have $5,000 if you're a P-plater to buy a new car, and also parents are being paid to take their kids to Saturday sport outside of the city. Now, we've had a very proud ethos admired by city folk in the bush of self-reliance and entrepreneurialism, but the National Party is now smothering them with a new welfare state which runs counter to the strong, purposeful way in which country people have lived their lives. I don't think smothering people with money is the best solution for country New South Wales. The best solution is stop the wind farms, stop the solar farms, stop the transmission wires through prime agricultural land, stop the restrictions on land clearing, stop the restrictions on water access for farmers, and let them get on with running their businesses. That's the best solution, rather than making them a subset of welfare dependency.
I want to ask one just about federal politics just quickly at the end here. We see that apparently Jim Chalmers didn't announce any major changes to superannuation, according to Albo today, despite the fact that, according to Channel 9, it was the biggest changes in 30 years. His own speech was about tax concessions, all the rest of it here. But most interestingly, and I think that this is what's going to tweak you, which is he talked about how equity was important at the end of all of this. Now, equity is not like equality, because equity is the equal outcome, that everyone ends up in the same place. Now, the reality is not everyone earns the same dollar, which means when you have superannuation, some people have more, some people have less. Did it frighten you at all that the Treasurer of Australia was talking about equity in a system of your wages over your working lifetime?
Well, it's a broken promise that he's talking at all about superannuation, because Labor said no changes. The policy was no change. Don't frighten the horses before the election, and now the horses are running after it. The Assistant Treasurer said that everything's on the table as part of this process. But again, it's a question of property rights. Your average person putting money into a superannuation fund thinks, well, not surprisingly, that's my money. And if in emergency circumstances, health, housing or whatever, I wouldn't mind some access to it. It's my money, let me run my life. Labor sees this money as belonging to the trade union superannuation funds, which have become slush funds for the left of politics, and are investing in suboptimal investment opportunities like climate change and Indigenous stuff. I mean, these funds only had one role: maximise the return to the people putting the finance in, and they're not doing that all that well. They're becoming sort of this.
It's the hammer for
this woke division of capitalism, which is not about maximising returns to the people who actually own the money. So people have got to fight at the current time for their own money and access to it, and the best possible financial return on it.
Bloody oath. Mark Latham, the leader of One Nation, joins us every single Wednesday night all the way up to the election, and when re-elected, fingers crossed, well and truly beyond.